We're counting down the top 10 worst Star Wars games ever. Terrible controls, frustrating head-on crashes, pointless difficulty, and moronic mechanics make these games a stain on the name of space epics.
How rude!
Rebel Assault 2 was incredibly cool when it first came out, blowing players away with seamless fusion of full-motion video and computer-generated graphics that would undoubtedly never be topped. Less fondly remembered are the infuriatingly cumbersome vehicle controls and paper-thin gameplay, which are probably the only part of the game that holds up worse than the game's direct-to-video visuals. Star Wars is full of sword-wielding space wizards, robots, assassins, and bizarre aliens, so given the right approach, a Star Wars fighting game could have been incredible. Unfortunately, we got Masters of the Teras, which chose to go the three-dimensional route during the very early days of, well, making video games with polygons, and it didn't exactly deliver on the gameplay front. The game controlled like Battle Arena Toshinden if you fed Battle Arena Toshinden a bottle of Quaaludes and drizzled it in molasses. But hey, at least Mara Jade's in it. Number 8 on our list is the famous Japanese Famicom Star Wars game where Darth Vader turns into a scorpion. Star Wars for the Famicom is on this list not only because its enemies bear no resemblance to the movie, but also because it's incredibly difficult even for the time it came out. With only 3 lives, one-hit kills, and brutally unfair levels, players must rely strictly on memorization to survive this abomination. In at number 7 on our list is the vintage Return of the Jedi arcade machine. Remember that hoverbike level from Battletoads and how hard it was and how much you hated it and just how terrible it was? Imagine that, but that's the entire game. The New Droid Army is a game about using the Force to fight mostly brain-dead enemy droids and aliens. Problems arise when your player runs out of Force powers, which happens constantly, and is forced to literally stand in place to recharge them. Collecting power-ups or items won't do it for you. You literally have to stand and wait and stand and wait and stand and wait until your Jedi is ready to fight another wave and drain his power again. Action games are supposed to be fun, and standing around is the opposite of fun. Whereas the first Force Unleashed port for Nintendo DS was a competent and unique touchscreen take on the console action game of the same name, Force Unleashed 2 is a broken and repetitive stylus masher that ended up doing more damage to your DS's little screen than to the Empire itself. Using a combination of wonky D-pad presses and violent touchscreen stabs and swipes, players smashed their way through wave after wave of mindless enemies until the game was finally over. Like the film or not, Episode 1's pod race scene is one of the most memorable and instantly recognizable moments from the franchise's history, and the console and PC tie-in game, Episode 1 Racer, did an admirable job of recreating the film's intense racing sequence. The Game Boy Color version, on the other hand, ditched the 3D graphics for a top-down, sprite-based racing game where it was impossible for players to see more than a few feet in front of them. The result was a pod race crashing simulator where players spent more time smashing into walls than soaring through the canyons of Tatooine. The PC version of Yoda Stories is a cute little desktop adventure, but the Game Boy Color port was a mess, which IGN rightfully gave a 2 out of 10 back in the day. A 2. There were quite a few awful handheld ports of much better Star Wars games that didn't make this list, but this procedurally generated slimy mudhole deserves to be here. Flight of the Falcon manages to make piloting the Millennium Falcon less fun than algebra homework. Imagine Star Fox, but boring, bland, endlessly repetitive, and painfully tiny. There's simply nothing to love here. Kinect Star Wars failed us on multiple levels. It fundamentally didn't work as a Kinect game. The motion controls and body tracking dipped in and out so rapidly that players ended up looking more like the Star Wars kid than Luke Skywalker. Being a Jedi involves style and mastery of the Force. Playing one in Kinect Star Wars involves flailing wildly, jumping around like a maniac, and generally just fighting against the controls more than fighting the Empire. It didn't work as a music game either, as Star Wars-inspired remixes of songs like Hollaback Girl, Hologram Girl, and YMCA Empire Today actively made those songs worse. It felt more like a disjointed collection of broken Star Wars-themed minigames rather than a cohesive, finished product. Those are our picks for the worst Star Wars games ever inflicted upon a poor, unsuspecting galaxy. What Star Wars games left you feeling like you'd gone wading through Bantha Poodoo? Let us know in the comments, and for all things Star Wars, stay with your friends at IGN, and may the Force be with you.